Hello, this is Yon Motureum. Recently, with so many amazing new cars being released, I've been focusing mainly on new car information, so I think I've neglected sharing some general car knowledge lately. In this video, under the theme of the truth about detailed car specs that only Korean consumers aren't told, I'll be getting closer to the truths that are kept from good Korean consumers. When you're buying your first car or a new car, the most important information is accurate details about the car you're about to purchase. In other words, the detailed specs. For example, you need to know what differences there are between the car you previously owned and the new car you're about to buy. For instance, you need basic information about what improvements there are between the second and third generation new cars and whether the car suits your intended purpose and use. In Korea, cars are the most expensive purchase after a house, so you need to carefully compare the detailed specs of the car you want to buy. What information should buyers know when purchasing a car? Not only the design, but also the car's performance, such as the powertrain, number of passengers, interior space, trunk storage space for carrying various items, and cargo capacity are important. These are essential items that you need to carefully compare. For example, in Korea, Hyundai Motor Group operates both Hyundai Motor Company and Kia Motors together. It's a rivalry between the compact Sportage and Tucson. The mid-size Sonata and K5, as well as the mid-size SUVs Sorento and Santa Fe, are actually vehicles that share the same platform. Even though these vehicles are in similar segments, things like the first and second row legroom, trunk cargo space, and the shape and design of the vehicle are different. And you can see that there are differences in measurements like overall length, width, and height. If car manufacturers don't provide this kind of detailed comparison data, I don't think it's something consumers can easily find and notice on their own. Could it be that manufacturers don't release this kind of information because they expect buyers and consumers to look it up and research it themselves? Even car salespeople, whom you have to meet at least once during the car buying process, usually have basic knowledge about the vehicles they're selling, but there are many cases where they don't know the detailed specifications when you ask them. They vaguely say things like, "This car is the best in its class," when selling the vehicles they're offering. For example, you might ask which car has a more spacious interior between the Santa Fe and the Sorento. In that case, a Hyundai salesperson will often say, "Of course, the new Santa Fe was recently released, so it's much bigger." Naturally, the Santa Fe is the answer. On the other hand, if you ask a Kia salesperson the same question, they'll say, "Of course, the Sorento is bigger. That's why so many families choose the Sorento." In a way, you end up getting answers based more on emotional guesses than on objective data. Consumers look up the car they want to buy on the internet and visit dealerships on purpose, but instead of getting detailed specs, sometimes they end up meeting salespeople with less knowledge about cars than the customers themselves, depending on the dealership. This kind of situation happens from time to time. Because manufacturers or salespeople don't provide accurate information about the detailed specs like this, both consumers who pay a lot of money to buy a car and salespeople who sell cars are making purchases, sales, and conducting business activities based on guesswork. To be more honest, when you buy a new car, you only get detailed information about the options, if anything. Because of this, people sometimes end up disappointed after buying a new car, either from their own experience or from what they've seen around them. When the new Santa Fe was released, Hyundai Motor Company heavily marketed it as having the largest interior space among mid-size SUVs. For families, interior space is the top factor when buying a car. Since detailed comparison data hasn't been released, we have no choice but to trust what the car manufacturers say. Does the new Santa Fe really offer a more spacious interior than the Sorento? So Yeonmot Gurum measured the detailed data himself. As you can see in the table, the Sorento and the new Santa Fe have almost the same figures for the first and second rows, but you can see that the third row in the Sorento is still larger than in the new Santa Fe. Unlike the manufacturer's press releases and media materials, These are not just simple estimates. Jon Motgurem compared this data using information published on overseas websites. The interior space of the new Santa Fe is similar to the Sorento in the first and second rows, but you can clearly see that the third row is more spacious. To be precise, the Sorento offers a roomier interior than the new Santa Fe. In other words, this is different from Hyundai Motor's official announcement. If the manufacturer had released this kind of comparison data on their domestic website, I think consumers could have compared it for themselves. Because this situation keeps repeating in Korea, consumers find it hard to know if they should keep trusting manufacturers and salespeople and continue buying. So Jon Motgurem looked it up personally. First, in the case of the Kia Sorento, which is very popular among mid-size SUVs in Korea, I couldn't find any detailed information about the interior materials on the domestic manufacturer's website. Mid-size SUVs are one of the most preferred vehicles for families. A comfortable interior space in the first and second rows is important, and for multi-passenger vehicles, people often buy the 7-seater, so the third row space is also an important factor in the purchasing process. However, when I searched for the same vehicle on the global website in the United States, detailed information such as headroom, shoulder room, legroom, and even hip room, which indicate the comfortable interior space of the first, second, and third rows, is kindly made available like this. Suddenly, Jon Motgurem feels really sad. Does Hyundai Motor Group love American consumers more than Korean or domestic consumers? Or do they think this kind of information is unnecessary for domestic consumers? I feel sad, a bit embarrassed, and on the other hand, I feel angry because it seems like we're being ignored. I also checked the European website. In addition to detailed specifications, information like top speed, 0 to 60, and brake performance is also kindly made available. Given this situation, why aren't detailed specifications being disclosed to domestic consumers? Domestic consumers already know regulations vary by country. However, I seriously want to ask Hyundai why basic technical information isn't being disclosed on the domestic manufacturer's website. I also looked up the information on the United Kingdom website. As you can see, detailed specifications such as the suspension, disc, and steering system are disclosed like this. You can also see that detailed information is disclosed, such as the trunk capacity measured by the Verband der Automobilindustrie method and the maximum weight when a trailer is attached. The data you're looking at now is for the compact SUV Kona. Well, even if I don't list each one individually. Detailed information, including technical data, is kindly made available. I also checked the French website, and this is the spec sheet for the Tucson, a compact SUV. You can see that detailed information, including gear ratios, is made available. I'm starting to get a little frustrated. This time, Jon Motgurem looked up some Asian websites. First, I checked the Australian website for information on the new high-performance i30N. Detailed information like headroom, legroom, and shoulder room is made public like this. Not only that, but I also found that technical data about the gear ratios is made public. I also checked the Chinese website, and the spec information on the Chinese manufacturer's website only provided limited information, similar to what domestic manufacturers offer. Looking at the specs released in China, does this at least reassure domestic consumers? South Korea has significant car sales, and it's already considered an advanced automotive country, ranking among the top globally. When domestic consumers buy vehicles made by domestic manufacturers, the detailed specifications they should basically know are not disclosed. The Hyundai Motor Group, which represents Korean automobiles, as time goes by, consumers' perceived satisfaction with the company is decreasing. It's practically a monopoly with a market share exceeding 70%. From the consumer's perspective, there seems to be more empathy toward the negative aspects of Hyundai Motor and the Hyundai Motor Group. The reason why this negative empathy is growing is because of things like this. It's quite absurd that they offer much better free warranty policies in the United States than they do domestically. They even offer warranties for about 10 years. There's definitely a negative view that higher quality parts are used for export products. The real driving force that made Hyundai Motor a global company is the domestic consumers. You could say it's an act of disregarding domestic consumers. I think this makes people empathize even more with the complaints and negative feelings about domestic consumers being treated this way. Isn't it that these complaints about domestic consumers facing such discrimination are ultimately what continuously create negative feelings and empathy? In the end, these negative reactions end up making imported cars seem like a better alternative. Jan Motgurum thinks that this kind of backlash will hinder greater opportunities and growth for Hyundai Motor Company. The core reason Hyundai Motor Company reached the global top 5 is domestic consumers played a key role, and Hyundai Motor Company should not forget this. On the reverse discrimination debate, I think consumers deserve equal access to detailed information, just as on overseas websites. Jan Motgurum thinks that another kind of discrimination in spec information will create further resentment. In this video, I talked about the truth behind detailed car specs that are not disclosed only to domestic consumers. Was this a little helpful? Your likes and subscriptions are a great support to Jan Motgurum. And even if I don't have much time in the future, I'll keep sharing car knowledge like this. Thank you.